Hi, today we are going to see about the newborn examination or assessment of newborn. First, we should check the vital signs of the baby. That is, we have to take the temperature, heart rate, respiratory rate, and blood pressure, but we used to check it rarely, and capillary refill time. These are the things you are supposed to check. First, let us see the temperature of the baby. Usually, we are checking it from the axilla, and the normal accelerated temperature is 36.5 to 37.5 degrees centigrade, and the accelerated temperature is 0.5 to 1 degree centigrade lower than the rectum. So after taking this, you have to add +1 after with the how much reading you are getting from the axilla. Along with that, you have to add +1, then only you will be getting the exact rectal temperature. Next is the heart rate of the baby. It should be obtained by auscultation and counted for 1 full minute. And the normal heart rate of the baby is between 120 to 160 beats per minute. And if the infant's heart rate is more than 170 beats per minute, we are calling that the baby is tachycardic. And in that case, we should make sure that the baby is not crying and not moving vigorously, because if the baby is crying and if the baby is moving vigorously, there is a chance for getting tachycardia. Next is respiratory rate. The normal respiratory rate is 40 to 60 per minute, and it should be obtained that when you are checking the respiratory rate also, you should count for 1 full minute. And newborns are having periodic rather than regular breathing. And the blood pressure, we are not measuring it as a routine. Normal blood pressure varies with the gestational age and the postnatal age of the baby. Next is capillary refill time. Normally it is less than 3 seconds over the trunk and maybe long as 4 seconds over the extremities. And delayed capillary refill time is there, means it indicates poor perfusion. Next, we can go to the physical examination or head to foot examination of the baby. In the first examination in delivery room, or as soon as that is the first examination we have to do inside the labor room itself, or immediately after the delivery, as early as possible after the delivery. And second detailed examination should be after 24 hours of time. And again, you have to do a discharge examination within 24 hours of discharge from the hospital. And in that case, we have to check the measurements like weight, length, and head circumference. These three are the components for growth measurements in neonates, and it should be plotted on a standard growth curves for the infant's gestational age. So this shows the standard growth chart, and this blue color, that is if the length of the baby is falling, or if it is coming to the blue colored area, that is if the graph is falling in this area, it shows that large for gestational age, and if it is in the yellow area, the baby's length is appropriate for the gestational age. And if it is falling below this, that is if it is in the pink section, it is small for gestational age. The same way head circumference graph is available here, and weight graph is also available here. Maintenance of these graphs should be in the yellow color, or it should be in this zone if the baby is appropriate for gestational age. Next is the weight. The weight of the normal Indian babies are between 2.6 to 3.8 kilogram. And if the weight of the baby is less than 2.5, we are considering that it is low birth weight, and daily the baby will be losing 5 to 10% of the total birth weight initially after delivery for first 7 to 10 days. That is, baby will be losing the weight for the first 7 to 10 days. And after that, daily 15 to 20 gram weight gain will occur for the baby daily. Next, length of the baby. Crown to heel length should be obtained on admission and weekly, and the normal newborn length varies from 48 to 52 centimeter at birth. And this is the way of checking the length. You can use an infantometer for checking the length of the baby. You have to extend the extremities and you have to keep the baby in the supine position, and you have to measure the length of the baby exactly by using the interferometer. And next one is head circumference, and this also we have to take admission, that is after delivery and weekly. And for measuring it, you can keep the measuring tape around the most prominent part of the occipital bone and the frontal bone, and the normal head circumference will be between 33 to 38 centimeter in the case of term newborn. So, as like it is shown in the figure, the head circumference we are taking from the prominent areas of the occipital protuberance to the frontal protuberance. And same way, we have to check the measure the chest circumference also. Chest circumference you can measure around the nipples. At the level of the nipple line, you have to take the measurement around the chest. So the chest circumference will be lower than the head circumference at birth, and at 1 year this will become more than the head circumference, and this process is known as crossing over. Now we can see the general examination of the baby. First, you have to see the color of the baby. If pallor is there, it may be due to the hemoglobin deficiency or maybe due to the shock. And if cyanosis, that is bluish discoloration of the skin and mucous membrane, if it is there, means it is due to the hypoxemia, that is lack of oxygen in the tissues. And if plethora is there, means that is also associated with the polycythemia. And if jaundice is there, means it is due to the elevated bilirubin level. So you have to see the color of the baby. That is this. Here we can see a cyanosed baby, bluish discoloration of the skin and mucous membrane. Even lips are also slightly bluish. And acrocyanosis means it is peripheral cyanosis, especially the cyanosis of bluish discoloration of the extremities. This is also due to the lack of oxygenation, and due to circulatory failure also this will come. And next is yellowish discoloration of the skin and mucous membrane, that is jaundice, maybe due to the destruction of bilirubin. And in the skin you have to see the purpura, ecchymosis, mottling, vernix caseosa, edema, Mongolian spot, and collodion infant. Vernix caseosa means it's a lubricant found on the skin or skin folds. See here you can see a white colored cheesy like substance, that is known as a vernix, and it disappears when the fetus appears, or when the fetus is coming towards the maturity or at term, near to the term, and it will be almost absent in the case of post-term babies. And this is purpura, and it is actually due to the microvascular thrombosis. This red color spots you can see over the body, and it is due to the microvascular thrombosis. And mottling means it is blotchy red purplish marbling of the skin. See, you can see the marbling of the skin, that is known as a mottling. And you have to see whether the baby is having edema. Usually you can see it in the case of Turner syndrome, this type of edema. And another one is Mongolian spot, that is dark blue, bluish like macular spots, usually over the sacrum. See this bluish color spots. Here also you can see over the buttocks. And in 90% of blacks and in Asians it will be there, and it will disappear by the age of 4 years. And another one is collodion baby, that is congenital. It's a congenital disorder characterized by parchment like taut membrane covering the whole body of the baby. See, you can see the patches like membrane covering the body. You can see this. So you have to see the skin for this type of change. And sometimes rashes will be there over the skin, that is sometimes milia, erythema toxicum, bullous impetigo, diaper rash, and navy. All those things will be there. So here you can see this white color spots, that is known as the milia, that is white papules less than 1 millimeter in diameter scattered across the forehead, nose, and cheeks. And these are sebaceous retention cysts, and it will disappear within weeks after the delivery. And next one is erythema toxicum. These are white vesicles with the red base, and it contains eosinophils, and usually it will disappear after 48 hours of birth, and it is transient and benign. And another one is bullous impetigo. This is actually a bacterial infection. Tiny pimples or red areas and will develop over the skin, and quickly this will turn into oozing. So you can see here oozing honey colored crusted patches. See here you can see honey colored patches. So this is due to the bacterial infection. And another one is Candida diaper dermatitis, that is due to the fungal infection. You can see, and it may come even due to the diaper continuous use of diaper also, that is diaper rashes. And another one is port wine stain. Here you can see over the face of the baby, that is flat deep red, and even if you are blanching the skin with pressure also, it will not, if you are applying pressure also, it will not blanch, and it is associated with the retinal and intracranial hematomas. Usually it is associated with the retinal and intracranial hematomas. And these are the things you are supposed to see over the skin. And over the head and neck, first over the skull, you have to see for the macrocephaly, microcephaly, caput succedaneum, cephalhematoma, subgaleal hemorrhage, and fontanelles also you have to see. See here you can see the large baby, the large head of the baby, that is known as, that may be due to the hydrocephalus, that is collection of CSF and retention of CSF that leads to the enlargement of the head, hydrocephalus. And microcephaly is absence of head or small head. And another one is caput succedaneum, that is edema of the scalp. See here you can see a bulging, and it will crosses the suture line also, and it is due to the fluid collection over the under the skin. And another one is cephalhematoma, and it is blood collection, and it is in the subperiosteal region, and it will not cross the suture lines. So these are the difference between cephalhematoma and caput succedaneum. And in case if you want to have the explanation, you can see the previous video about the fetal skull. And the complications of this cephalhematoma include, it may be due to the underlying skull fracture, and that may produce jaundice, and calcification of this will occur sometimes, and there is a chance for infection, and it may be due to the intracranial hemorrhage also. And next one is subgaleal hemorrhage, that is under the hemorrhage under the apneurosis of the scalp, and this also will cross the suture lines. And next we can see the fontanelles. In the fontanelles you have to see the anterior fontanelle, and if the anterior fontanelle is large, that is the usual size of the anterior fontanelle is 2.5 to 4 centimeter length, and if it is large, it may be due to the hypothyroidism or osteogenesis imperfecta or hydrocephalus. And if it is small, it may be due to the microcephaly or craniostenosis. And bulging of the anterior fontanelle, if it is there, means it may be due to meningitis or hydrocephalus, or may be due to increased intracranial pressure or intracranial hemorrhage. And depressed anterior fontanelle, if it is there, means it shows the dehydration of the baby. And large posterior fontanelle is there, means we can suspect the hypothyroidism of the baby. And over the eyes, in the eyes you have to see the pupils, you have to see the reaction of the pupils to the light, whether equality is there, whether it is reacting to the light, you have to see, and you have to assess for the skin. You should see the cornea, conjunctiva, and iris of the baby. And when you are assessing the conjunctiva, you have to see for the subconjunctival hemorrhage, and it's a benign condition. Usually it will resolve within 2 to 4 weeks. See here you can see the redness, and it is due to the subconjunctival hemorrhage. And you have to see for the congenital cataract. Usually you can see it in the case of rubella, that is thickness of the lens. You can see it over here. And you have to see the glaucoma, and this is due to the increased intraocular pressure. And you should see disconjugate eye movements, that is irregular eye movements. This may be there even in the case of squint also. Next, in the ear, you have to assess for the symmetry and irregular shape. And normal ear will be like this. So this, if you are drawing a line from the inner outer canthus of the eye, so it will be touching the pinna, upper portion of the pinna, and sometimes it may be lower than this line. See here, the line will be crossing like this, and it may be low set, and the size and shape also may be different, and rotation and location of the pinna also may be different. So note the presence of auricular or pre-auricular pits, fleshy appendages, lipoma or skin tags. And low set ears, that is below the lateral canthus of the eye, if it is there, means it is associated with the genitourinary anomalies, because these areas are developing at the same time. And malformed ears can be associated with the Down syndrome or Turner syndrome. This type of ears may be associated with the Down syndrome or Turner syndrome. And you have to see the ear tags. See here, you can see a mild projection, that is the ear tag. You have to see whether it is there or not. And over in the nostril or in the nose, you should see the patency of the nostril, and you should see whether choanal atresia is there or not, and you should observe for the flaring of the nostrils. See here, you can see the deviated nasal septum. You should see for the deviation of the nasal septum also. And in the mouth, you have to see for the cleft lip and cleft palate, tongue tie, natal teeth, and tongue size. See here, you can see the cleft lip, and here unilateral cleft lip with the cleft palate you can see. And this picture shows the bilateral cleft lip with the cleft palate. And you have to see for the Epstein pearls and cheeks. That is, Epstein pearls means this is small white cyst which contain keratin and frequently found on either side of the median raphe of the palate, and usually it resolves within 1 to 2 months. And in the mouth, sometimes ranulas will be there, that is small bluish white swelling. Here you can see bluish white swelling, and the size also may vary. That will develop on the floor of the mouth, representing benign mucus gland retention cyst. And you have to see the tongue also. The normal tongue will be like this, and if ankyloglossia, that is tongue tie, is there, means here you can see the frenulum is attached to the tongue. See here, ankyloglossia or tongue tie is there for the baby. So you have to see the tongue tie or presence of tongue tie also. And you have to see for the natal teeth. Usually in the baby's mouth, teeth will not be there. Here you can see natal teeth is there. And another one is microglossia, that is large size tongue of the baby. You have to see for the size of the tongue also. And over the tongue, if white color, these type of rashes is there, means it's due to the fungal infection, that is oral thrush. You have to see the mouth for the presence of thrush also. And in the neck you should see for the cyst, that is you have to see for the thyroglossal cyst, cystic hygroma, and you have to see for the sternomastoid tumor and thyroid tumor, and you should see for the webbing of the neck also. Sternomastoid tumor is there, means you can see the hematoma in middle third of the sternomastoid muscle, and torticollis, that is limitation of the lateral rotation of the neck, also will be there due to the presence of this tumor. And webbed neck, you can see over here, that is congenital skin fold that runs along the side of the neck down to the shoulder, and commonly you can see it in the case of Turner syndrome. See here, you can see that skin fold. And when you're coming to the musculoskeletal system, you have to see for the fracture, dislocation, polydactyly, syndactyly, and for the deformities. And you have to see for the Erb's palsy, that is brachial plexus injury, that will damage the upper arm. So that may produce even the paralysis of the upper extremity due to the damage of the brachial plexus. And polydactyly means here you can see one extra finger is there. See, polydactyly means excessive number of fingers, or if sometimes it may come even for the toes also. And syndactyly means that is clubbing of the fingers. It may be simple or complex or partial. Simple means it involves only the soft tissue. Only soft tissue attachment is there. Soft tissues are attached together. And complex means it involves a fusion of bones or nail. Partial means web extends from the base partially, and it may not be covering completely. and complete means web from the base to the tip of the finger. That is, from the base to the tip of the finger it will be there. That is known as complete syncdately. And for confirming the degree of fusion, actually you have to take the X-ray. And this is Talip's equinovarus or clubfoot. That is inversion of the foot. You can see over here, and that foot is as like it is abducted inward, and heel inversion also will be there, and it is always known as Talip's equinovarus, and that is the internal rotation of the club or club foot. You have to see for that also. Next, when we are assessing the spine and hip, you have to inspect the back for the meningocele, examine the hip for the dislocation of the hip, and this picture shows the meningomyelocele. That is, in the case of meningomyelocele, that is, it's a herniation of the spinal cord, and here this portion is, see, you can see this portion is not covered by the tissue. These tissues are exposed and it is not covered by a sac. And here this shows the meningocele and this shows the meningomyelocele. So here it is open and it is not covered by the soft tissue, or covering tissue is not there, but meningocele is covered by the that is, exposed spinal cord will be covered by a thin layer. So that is the difference between meningocele and meningomyelocele. In both cases, herniation of the spinal cord will be there, but here it will be covered by a thin layer. Next, we can see the development dysplasia of the hip. That is congenital dislocation of the hip. You have to see. For assessing that, you can perform the Barlow's maneuver or Ortolani's maneuver. Barlow's maneuver means, in that case, you have to abduct the hip while applying pressure on the knee and forcing it posteriorly. See, abducting the hip by applying pressure over the hip and forcing it posteriorly. And if dislocation, and this will help for you to detect the dislocation of the hip. And another one is Ortolani's test. That also will help you to identify the dislocation of the hip. And next is chest and lungs. First you have to do the inspection, and in the inspection you have to see for the supernumerary breast or nipple. That is common. Actually you have to see whether extra nipple or extra breast tissues are there or not, and sometimes breast enlargement also may be there, and it may be due to the secondary effect of the maternal hormone, and sometimes unilateral absence or hypoplasia of the pectoralis major will be there, and that is known as the Poland syndrome. That is missing of or underdevelopment of the muscles of one side of the body. That is known as the Poland syndrome. And sometimes the nipples may be widely spaced. This you can see commonly in the case of Turner syndrome and in the case of Noonan syndrome. So in these two genetic abnormalities, the nipples will be widely spaced. So you have to see the space in between the nipples also. And in the chest and lungs, you have to observe for the respiratory pattern, and brief periods of apnea are normal in the transition, and that is not, that is why we are calling the babies, we are telling that the infants are having periodic breathing. And you have to see the chest movements also. You have to see both areas are having symmetrical movements, and you have to observe whether any retractions or tracheal tugging is there or not. And you have to perform the auscultation, and you should see whether any audible stridor or grunting or wheeze or rails are there or not. And usually slight substernal retraction will be there during the inspiration. That is common, or that is normal for the babies. Next, heart and cardiovascular system. You have to see for the tachypnea, tachycardia, increased pericardial activity, cyanosis, hyperoxia test. You have to do the auscultation of the heart sound. You have to see whether any murmur or irregular heart rhythm is there or not. You have to see the perfusion. For that you can check the capillary refill time. You have to palpate the femoral artery for the pulsation, and if absence, if it is not there, it shows a coarctation of the aorta. And if bounding pulse is there, means it may be due to the patent ductus arteriosus. So you have to see the characteristics of the pulse. And if bounding pulse is there means you can suspect PDA, and if femoral pulse is absent means you can expect the coarctation of aorta. And when you're coming to the abdomen, you have to see for the organomegaly, that is, you have to see for the enlargement of the organs. Palpate the liver, and it will be palpable 1 to 2 centimeter below the costal margin, and spleen also will be palpable at the costal margin. Palpate these areas and identify the size of the organ and shape of the organ, and you have to palpate for any of the masses, and you have to see whether the abdomen is distended or scaphoid abdomen is there. Scaphoid abdomen means there is sunken or hollow abdomen. You have to see that, and you have to see the umbilical stump. The umbilical cord you will be cutting, and that cord, remnants of cord will be there. You have to see that for the presence of bleeding, and you have to see whether it is meconium stain, whether granuloma is there, whether any discharge or inflammation is there for the umbilical cord stump, that you have to see. And you have to see for the omphalocele and for the gastrochiasis, that is, gastrochiasis and omphalocele, both things are the herniation of abdominal organs, and over the abdomen you have to see, usually the abdomen will be cylindrical in shape, and the umbilical cord will be bluish white at birth, with 2 arteries and 1 vein will be there. You have to see that also. This is the normal appearance of the umbilical cord. And in the case of meconium stained umbilical cord, the umbilical cord will be having this color, that is that meconium, almost greenish color is there. And omphalocele means that is defect covered by amnion with the cord attachment to the apex defect, and actually through this umbilicus, herniation of the abdominal organs will occur. But in the case of gastrochiasis also, herniation of the abdominal organs are occurring, but it's not compulsory that it should occur through the umbilical cord. If it is occurring through the umbilical cord, that is known as the omphalocele. And you have to see the abdomen for the distension. Here you can see the abdominal distension. And when you're coming to the genitalia and rectum, in the male genitalia, usually in the full-time babies, the scrotum will be well developed, and it will be having deep rugae, and both testes would be descended into the scrotum at term. And in preterm, the scrotum is small with a few rugae, and the testes are absent or high in the scrotum. The other abnormalities you can expect include undescended testes, hydrocele, inguinal hernia, and hypospadiasis. So you can see bilateral hydrocele, that is collection of fluid in the testis. Inguinal hernia, that is herniation of the abdominal organs or pelvic organs through the inguinal region. You can see the inguinal hernia over here. And you have to see for the hypospadiasis also, that is urinary meatus, that is ventral opening, or the urethra will be opening to the ventral surface of the penis. Actually it should be at the tip and it should be centrally placed. Instead of that, it will be ventrally placed. Urethral opening is placed at the ventral aspect of the penis. And when you're observing the female genitalia, if the baby is a female baby, at full term, the labia majora will be completely developed and it will be covering the labia minora. But in the case of preterm, the labia majora will be widely separated and labia minora may be protruded. And sometimes discharges or slight bleeding will be there from the vagina, and it will be due to the withdrawal of the maternal hormones. And sometimes ambiguous genitalia will be there, and in that case you should not give a gender assignment to the baby. First you have to perform the endocrine evaluation, and after that only you have to assign the gender for the baby. This is withdrawal bleeding, that is bleeding from the vaginal area due to the sudden withdrawal of the maternal hormones. And this shows the picture of ambiguous genitalia. In this case, you have to perform the hormonal analysis before confirming the sex of the baby. And next one is imperforate anus. The anus we have to inspect for its location and for the patency. And you have to check it carefully by insertion of rectal thermometer. For checking it or for assessing the patency, you can insert a rectal thermometer and you can measure baby's first temperature so that you can make sure that the anus is patent. And usually the baby will pass meconium in the first 48 hours after birth, and if delayed passage is, if the baby is getting delayed for the passage of meconium, you can suspect the imperforate anus or you can suspect the intestinal obstruction, and usually the baby will pass urine within 24 hours within 24 hours after the delivery. Next we can go for the neurological examination. In the neurological assessment, we have to see the muscle tone, you have to see for the convulsions and neonatal reflexes. The usual reflexes I am discussing here, that includes Moro reflex, grasp reflex, tonic neck reflex, stepping and placing, rooting and suckling. First, let us see the posture of the baby. The term infant's normal posture is this one, that is the hip will be abducted and partially flexed, and the knees also will be flexed, and the arms are also abducted and flexed at the elbow. See, it is flexed at the elbow, and the fists are clenched with the fingers covering the thumb. And tone, in order to test the tone, you can support the baby's hand under the chest, and the neck extensors, if it is having proper tone, it will hold the head for 3 seconds, and there should not be more than 10% head lag when moving from supine to sitting position. If the baby is not having proper muscle tone, the head will be in this position. Otherwise, the baby will hold the head for 3 seconds when you are holding the baby like this. And next is opisthotonus from E. coli meningitis, that is spasm of the muscles causing arching of the back. Arch-shaped back will be there. It is due to the spasm of the head, neck and spine. And the neonatal reflexes, actually these reflexes are otherwise known as developmental or primary or primitive reflexes, and it consists of autonomic behaviors, and it do not require higher level brain functioning also, and this will provide information about the integrity of the central nervous system, and the absence include the depression of the central nervous system. And these are protective and usually disappear at a higher level when the higher level motor functions are emerging. First, we can see the Moro reflex, and its onset is between 28 to 32 weeks of gestation, and usually it will disappear within 4 to 6 months, and it is the most important reflex in the neonatal period. And how to check the Moro reflex means, you just hold in if the baby is in the supine position, elevate the head of the baby by your hand and then drop the head slowly, and drop the head little down suddenly, and the response will be extension of the back. You can see this picture, extension and abduction of the upper limb, flexion and abduction of the upper limb with the open fingers, and the baby will cry. And the significance of Moro reflex shows if bilateral absence is there, it shows the depression of the anus by narcotics or by anesthesia. And if brain anoxia or kernicterus is there also, in that case also bilateral absence will be there, and in the case of premature baby also absence will be there. And if the response is asymmetric, it may be due to the Erb's palsy or maybe due to the fracture of clavicle or humerus. And if it is persisting after 6 months, it shows the damage of the central nervous system. See, here you can see the Moro reflex. Next is suckling reflex. If you are keeping finger or if a nipple is placed in the mouth of the baby will start to suck the nipple vigorously, and this will appear between after 32 weeks of gestation, and usually this disappears between 3 to 4 months. This shows the suckling reflex. And next one is rooting reflex. It is well established between 30 to 34 weeks of gestation, and this also will disappear within 3 to 4 months. And how to elicit means, you can just stroke the upper lip or corner of the infant's mouth, and the infant will turn towards the stimulus and the infant will open the mouth also. See, if you're turning or if you're stimulating or if you're touching over the corner of the mouth, the baby will turn towards that side. Next one is palmar grasp. This also will start with 36 weeks of gestation, and this also will disappear by 4th month, and it can be elicited by the examiner by placing her finger on the palmar surface of the infant's head, and the infant's hand grasps the finger of the examiner. And if you are trying to remove the finger, the infant will hold it tightly. Here you can see the technique. Put the examiner finger in the baby's palm with the slight rubbing. So the baby will be holding the finger like this. The response, the infant will grasp the finger firmly. And if it is absent, it shows the CNS depression. And if it persists after 6 months, that also shows the damage of the central nervous system. Sorry, after 4 months. Next is stepping reflex. This will start between 35 to 36 weeks of gestational age, and this also will disappear by 6 weeks. And it can be elicited by touching the top of the infant's foot to the edge of a table while the infant is held upright. The infant make movements that resemble the stepping. See, if you're holding the baby like this, and if one leg is touching over the table, the baby will start to move as like the baby is stepping. When the dorsum of the baby's foot touches the under surface of the table, flexion then extension will take place, or put his foot on the table. See, here you can see one hand is extended and another is flexed. See, this give you an explanation about that. Next one is tonic neck reflex or fencing posture, and this will be evident 4 weeks in the post gestational period, and it will disappear by 7 months, and it can be elicited by rotating the infant's head from the midline to one side, and the infant should respond by extending the arm on the side to which the head is turned and flexing the opposite arm. And appearance at birth or persistence beyond 9 months indicates the cerebral palsy. If this is persisting after 9 months, it shows the cerebral palsy. So this is tonic neck reflex. So if you're turning towards that side will be flexed and the other side will be extended. So these are the important things that we are supposed to do in the assessment of the newborn. Thank you for watching this video. Bye.